Should we go for it then?
Yes.
Right, 3, 2, 1. Boom. Welcome to the Eggman Show. My name's Forbes.
My name's Scotty Paws.
And we've got Nick Mercer on the show today, fresh out of a recording session.
Good day.
How's it going?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Tunes are sounding class, man. It's a bit different to what you've done before. It's different from Sargent. And it's different for your solo stuff. What's inspired it?
I don't know. Lockdown, I think. I haven't really written any tunes for years, like so long. But being locked in the house, I think like lockdown's done this thing where everybody gets proper, like introspective.
Yeah,
kind of like
I think it's like
everybody's
cabin fever.
Cabin fever. Everyone's questioning everything about their life, where they're going, and
What's their purpose?
What's their purpose and all that. And
So a lot of your songs, like it's about yourself, your own experiences. And
I think so. Yeah, they're a wee bit more heart on sleeve.
yeah, you can
Which
tell
is
that. Yeah.
kind of weird, but there you go.
Did it all come to you naturally? Like
Yeah.
one off?
Yeah, I probably sat down, started playing the guitar a bit, and I think what happens is if you're listening to music and you're loving it, you tend to write, and I think that's probably what happened first. I was kind of like, I just fell in love with listening to music again.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I wasn't that bothered, to be honest. And and I just kind of got back to listening to tunes, and then found myself obviously having time because you're in the house, being able to sit there and strum away with the guitar, and then it's something that never kind of leaves you if you've written songs before.
Yeah, definitely.
Like whether you're in a band anymore or whether you're still recording stuff or releasing stuff, I think it's something that you sit down and it just happens.
Yeah, if you've got an ear for a good melody and stuff.
So it just happened. Wrote a few tunes and I was like, oh, they're all right. So I'm going to go record them. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. So where did it all start for you in terms of music? What was the first kind of bands that came along that made you get into it, like want to start playing guitar?
So I reckon I never started playing guitar till I left school. But at school, the way you kind of dressed and the way you looked and what your haircut was like was all based on
What was going on?
music that you were into. So like, I think previously, like the kind of Britpop Oasis stuff was, I was probably too young for it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't in it when it was happening, but you were always looking back. So I'd look back on things like, and then I think off Oasis, you kind of got into the Beatles. Off Oasis, you got into the Stone Roses and the Laz and the Smiths.
I was the same. They inspired me to listen to other music.
Yeah.
Oasis.
So that's how it happened. And then, so I was obsessed with kind of like being in a band before I even tried to write songs or even could sing or even kind of like started playing guitar. But then the Strokes came along when I was 16. So that would have been 2001.
Yeah.
And
it's like perfect timing for that, yeah.
like, so 16-year-old, the Strokes turn up and it was like,
Boom.
you seen a picture of the Strokes and you're like, where have these people come from? Like from a different planet. And then you heard the music and you were like, what?
Because that thing, their kind of look went away and like after the punk thing, but then they brought that back.
Yeah. But it was just, it felt fresh as anything. It's like when something is fresh, it's just like, whoa, this is going to go somewhere.
Everything else just kind of seems rubbish.
Totally.
Coming at the time. Yeah.
And it was like obviously Oasis and all of that stuff was great, but they were never my band. So when the Strokes turned up, it was like, you're 16, they're coming to Scotland, you get to go see them. And it was just like, whoa.
Did you go and see them?
Yeah, I've seen them a good few times. I've seen them, they played Tea in the Park 2001, and they were on the main stage, and they'd only released, I don't even think the debut album had been released yet, somebody had dropped out the main stage that year, and they basically just got put on it. Like, they were like, right, you're going to be like second on the main stage. And I think for them, that was the biggest stage they'd ever played on at that point. And they were
been amazing.
If you look at interviews and stuff, even them, they're kind of like, what is going across here? Because they broke Britain before they went back and broke America. So that was it. Yeah, 16, and then 17, Libertines came out. 18, first Kings of Leon album. So like for that period of time, the Coral came out, first debut album when I was 17. So it was like every other week it was like boom, boom, boom. There was just this new album came out. And
I'm jealous, man, because like that doesn't happen now. There's no much for like us to be inspired by people that are starting bands. Like I says earlier, like Stone Roses felt like my band because they came around when I was 17 and like split up when I was about 23. I seen them 5 times.
They reformed when you were
17. But there was people about like Jake Bugg and Blossoms and Catfish, but it was nothing that I could cling on to. So I'm jealous that you had something to cling on to.
Oh yeah, I'm like, what a time to be alive. I know, honestly. And it was like a lot of bands would pass through like the Barrowlands. So like within the space of 4 months, you would have seen like the Libertines, the Vines, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club.
They're a great band.
Like just seen them all at the Barrowlands. It was just like every other week you were going to the Barrowlands to watch a band. And it was just like, this is insane. They're just all blown up at the same time. It was amazing time.
So did you start writing music round about that time?
Yeah.
Is that what inspired you to write songs?
So when I left school, when I was 18, that summer I got a guitar and literally just started learning like Verve songs and Oasis songs, and quickly realised that every song in the world you only need, it's like 12 chords.
Yeah.
And I was like, my logical brain was like, right, okay, I can try this then, because these, like, when you actually think about what like those songs are, I'm like, right, cool, let's go for it. So I did that, and then just started writing, and then turned out it was all right. And then I needed a band, but I knew this guy down the road called Scott who he was a bit younger than me, but apparently he was able to play like every Oasis song like in a medley style. So you could just go from like supersonic guitar part to like Live Forever. And I went round his house, knocked on his door, and I was like, somebody tell me you could play every Oasis song. And he's like, oh, I can. And then he's like shut the door, went upstairs, opened his window, and then you could hear him playing his electric and his amp in his bedroom. And I was like, decent,
all right.
That's cool. And then I just left, and then that was it. That was the start of us two kind of doing stuff together, and we just started writing straight away. I was like, what? I didn't want to be in a covers band, so I'm just going to start writing songs, and that's what we did.
Yeah. Had you written a lot of the songs that ended up going on Sargent's first album by that time?
Round about the time that we started writing together, that was kind of it. We didn't write a lot of songs. We just wrote. It was just like it was just like it came out, and it was like, oh, brilliant, cool.
So was this before you met Bill and Rory?
So it was Scott knew Bill and Rory, so he got Bill and Rory in, and that would have been about 2000, and so that was the summer of 2003, and it was maybe the beginning of 2004 that we got in a room and started rehearsing. Yeah, and it wasn't very serious at first. It was like once a month, and then it kind of picked up a bit. And I think we played our first gig at the end of 2004. Yeah.
Where was that about?
It was actually at the Glenrothes YMCA. Yeah.
I'm sure I played my first gig at the KDY YMCA.
Did you?
We all start off in the YM.
Everybody's in the YM.
So what was the local music scene like when you were sort of that age? Was there a lot of other bands?
There wasn't much. There was a lot of so all the early gigs you'd be playing on a lineup, and it would be like a metal band. There was a lot of bands going about that were like, Blink 182 type, like skater bands, and so there was a lot of that, and then maybe a goth band. Yeah. So you're like on this bill, like 4 different genres. The audience is just everybody's mates, and you're like, what's this all about? But it was fine because we just had to learn.
The gigs are where you learn the craft, eh?
Oh, totally.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that was it. Like we kind of just decided to play everywhere. Like we used to play some mental strange gigs like in Glenrothes.
I've played a few
like
strange ones,
pubs and stuff, and
local pubs and
like the Legion, British Legion, YMCA, all these weird things that ultimately it was just like, let's get on with it.
So when did the management, and was that the first step up once you started getting fans, or management or agent?
So yeah, there was a bit of tension on us because we were getting lots of people were turning up to our gigs, and we'd done a few XFM sessions, like acoustic XFM sessions, which is now Radio X, but that was like XFM Scotland like championed us, and like we'd recorded a couple of demos, and they basically just went straight onto radio daytime.
That's
like
decent,
like airplay. So people were picking up on it. So it was actually a manager came in the February 2007, I think it was, and he was managing the Fratellis at the time. So the Fratellis had just won a Brit Award. They'd just sold 2 million records. So he had he had the contacts and the ability to know what he was doing.
Yeah.
And he came in, basically said to us, here's 50 quid a week, go sign on the dole and lock yourself in a rehearsal room for 6 months.
Sounds amazing.
And that's what we did.
I love that.
We were literally like Monday to Friday, 9 o'clock till 9 o'clock. We would play like the verse of a song for 45 minutes. That was literally our work.
That's what you've got to do though.
Like over and over and over and over again. And
it was like physically impossible to play it wrong almost.
Yeah, so it's like when we used to have a mistake jar. It was like if you made a mistake in rehearsal, you put in the quid in the jar.
The drummers will always be skinting it now.
It's so funny. Like literally put that quid in, and it'd be like, no, you made a mistake, man. Put the quid in. And I was making mistakes as well, but it was funny. So then on the Friday night, it would be like everybody that like we would then have money to go and buy pints because it was like it all came from the mistake jar. That was how it worked. But our work, I don't believe anybody gets anywhere unless you work hard.
Yeah, you're right.
So that's it, simple as that. And that's what we did. Worked our ass off, done loads of demos, and then after that, we got signed.
How did that come about?
So the manager.
Did he just bring the label to use pretty much?
So people would come up to our little Rat Pit rehearsal room and like watch us, and it would every other day there would be someone else there, and people, and then offers basically just started coming in, and then we took one, and that was in September 2007.
Was that Mercury Records?
Mercury Records, yeah.
So who else was on the label at that time?
So that's a subsidiary, if that's the word. Of Universal.
All right.
So Universal's got a few different parts. So there was, I think McCartney was on Mercury at the time.
All right.
And there was also Vertigo label was Mercury, which had a few kind of like I think like Razorlight. Was it the Killers that were on that? I think they were.
And they were huge bands at that time. Point in time as well.
Yeah. So it was a big label, and
What happened after that, and what did they bring to the table? Did you start playing bigger gigs after that? Did they send you out on tour?
So what you do is we around the same time as we got the label, we got like a booking agent as well. So he was working for one of the bigger booking agents. So we'd be on tour, we're like doing support slots every other week, sort of thing. Especially any bands that came through Scotland, we would tend to get shoved on the bill.
Did you play the Barras and that at that time?
Yeah. We played. I think we played the Happy Mondays and then Jamie T.
As well. He would have been big at that time as well.
Yeah, he was just coming through, which was class. And we would just be just random gigs here, there, and everywhere. It's pretty good. And then the label obviously put you in the studio, record an album, and that's it.
So what studio did you go in to record an album?
So we were in Rockfield Studios in Wales.
Unreal studio.
It was mad. Like the history
like
there.
Bohemian Rhapsody and everything's done.
The piano's still in the room.
Did you play it?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Didn't he play Bohemian Rhapsody? I was just going like this.
Played Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
Aye, so that's class. We were in Rockfield for 6 weeks. So you'd basically stay there. It's in the middle of nowhere. You're like shut off from all society.
Yeah.
And I was like, flip, man, this is intense. And but just get your head down, get the songs down. And then after that, we went to London for 2 weeks. So we were in Rack Studios. And then we spent 3 days in Abbey Road as well.
That's crazy with Abbey Road. That blows my mind every time.
Is that an actual studio too? Like the Beatles?
Yeah, it was like all the Beatles mics and that.
That's fucking madness.
Like, I was just sitting there kissing it.
John Lennon fled on this.
Literally, like, bet's not even being cleaned. So I was like, aye, that was class, man. But that was because, so we did the album with John Leckie, who did the Stone Roses album.
That must have been crazy, being a big Stone Roses fan yourself, to go and do that. An album with him, because to me he's one of the best producers.
Yeah, definitely. How did that actually come about? We getting to work with John.
So this is funny. So just as I was about to start writing songs and playing guitar, I used to write lists, just a bit like your list. Yeah. But I would put things down on lists.
Oh, right.
And like, so there would be things like play Glastonbury, play Tea in the Park, go on tour with Oasis, play. Even like the little other ones, like sell out Rothes Halls in Glenrothes, because that was the biggest
big
local
venue.
Sign a record deal, record an album with John Leckie. So all these things were on a list that I had, and everything on the list came true apart from playing Jules Holland. Oh, but I'm over that.
Was there ever like a hint that might happen?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, it was like on the cards.
Oh, that is a.
Because that's all the things that you do once the album gets released. But we got dropped eventually, so the album didn't come out.
Tell me about how it came crashing down. What happened?
So the manager, we were playing Reading and Leeds, and the manager was like, "Do you want the good news or do you want the bad news?" And I was like, "Tell us the bad news first. Always go with the bad news first." Because you didn't ever ken if the good news and the bad news is the bad news really bad or just a wee bit bad, and is the good news really good, or are you just are you going to be like what are you going to say to me?
And the good news will compensate the bad news.
Like, here's some really bad news and here's some good news that's not actually that good. Like, I was like, bad news, let's go. So he was like, you've been dropped, the label's dropped you, along with like 10 other bands at the time.
Fucking hell.
I was like, amazing, it's all right, we've finished the album, we'll get it back and someone else will sign us, which didn't happen because we couldn't get the album back for ages because of like legal stuff, etc. But then the good news was you're going on tour with Oasis. So to be honest, I couldn't give a crap.
I would be more buzzing with the good news. Like,
I was like, good. I was like, brilliant, awesome, list, tick. I was like, great. And I was always optimistic. So when bad news came, I was always like, it's going to be fine.
That's what I'm kind of like. It's like, it must be like a thing when you're in your 20s, you just think that everything's going to be all right eventually. Yeah. Well, everybody's like that.
You think you've still got ages, eh? Well, you do still have ages.
You do. Even like, I'm 35 now and I still think I've got ages. But if I was 26 and I was like, oh my God, my life will be over by the time I'm 35. It's not. 30s are great, man. The best.
So what was it like supporting Oasis? That must have been an absolute dream come true.
To be honest, like that was probably the last big thing that we did.
It's an amazing thing to do, though.
Exactly. And it was almost like when you were doing it, I was like, we can all just stop now because I'm completely happy and fulfilled. Like, it was just that.
So was it Glasgow and Aberdeen
now? Because it was just so ridiculous for like 4 kids from Glenrothes to like go on this little mad journey and then find yourself doing that. I was just like, what's going on here? Like, it didn't even feel real. Still doesn't feel real, like, at all. Like, when I think about it, I'm like, nah.
It's almost like it's what you dream about when you're writing songs. Stuff. You're like, imagine all these people, imagine 10,000 people watching me play this tune, and then it actually happens.
You're like, what? That's mad. What is going on?
So how were the guys for Oasis? Did they treat you as well? Were they nice for you?
They were brilliant, man. Like, the whole backstage area was just all open. So it was like come in when you want, leave when you want, eat what you want, drink what you want. Like, it was just completely, it was like a nice wee family unit sort of thing. Yeah. It was great, man. It was great.
I've heard they've always been quite sound with support acts and stuff. Yeah.
They seem to look after their support and stuff.
And they would stand at the side and watch us every night as well, which I thought that changed my attitude to that.
They seem
I probably
to be
spent about 3 years no watching any support band ever. And I was like, do you know what? That's shocking. Like, I'm going to go out and watch every band from now on. Yeah. And I did, because I was just like, fair play.
If you can do it at that level, you should be doing it. Yeah.
But they seem to be fans of your music. They seem to big you up a couple of times in the press and stuff.
Noel used to speak about it. Some say that's the kiss of death, but like, it's always the kiss of death when Noel starts bigging you up. It's like every band that Noel's bigged up, no one's made it Like no
it's
one's.
True. He
That's
signed
pretty
like
true.
bands like Proud Mary and that to his own label, and I've never heard of them since.
Nah,
It's strange.
Nah. So I was like, oh no, this is it. The end is nigh.
I hope Noel Gallagher rips it utter piss out of us today.
That's what you want. Just slate us. I need you to slate us. That's what it was like.
So tell us the story about what happened with Liam Gallagher when you supported them in the jacket.
Oh, the jacket.
The famous jacket sergeant story.
Still wear it to my bed. Just like boxer shorts and my leather jacket. Love it, man. I don't know, because you're all hanging about and relaxing and all that, and you just start talking about things that you got in common, which I guess is music and clothes. Mm-hmm. And I think one day I was like, oh, I like your jacket, and he just took it off and was like, try it on. Tried it on. It was like so big. It was like drowned me.
Was it big on him? Because he's quite
I was tiny, man. I'm still tiny. but I filled out a little bit more. But like at that point, I was like an absolute rake. More like Forbes.
Minus.
I was
maybe
more
less hair as well.
It was more like you. So it was like, I was like, tried it on. It was absolutely humongous. And he's just standing there and he's like, looks great, man. Looks so good. You should wear it on stage tonight. And I was like, it's massive, mate. It's huge. And he was like, so I went to take it off and he was like, nah, you can keep it. And I was like, well.
You wouldn't turn it down, eh?
Nah, of course not. I was like, and I just went like, thanks very much, Liam. And that was class.
So was that like a custom made jacket? Was it like a pretty green jacket?
Nah, it was a Barracuda.
Oh,
so it was
really?
like a leather Barracuda with like a tartan inline thing.
Loved.
It's nice, like.
That's fucking class. So that's class how you've got that memory to keep. And that
we never got any photographs, so the only thing I've got that makes it real is the jacket. Like open the cupboard and it did happen.
You just dress up as Liam.
I suppose, see, when you're playing gigs with people, do you ever feel that you're too like shy to take photos at times?
Oh yeah, totally.
You want to try and be cool in that.
You're trying
like a fan,
like use a picture. Totally. I was like, nah. But it's totally ridiculous that we never got a picture with them. But
when you think back to it now,
I'm like, what were we doing?
So you were saying that was the last big thing Sarge had done. Was there any other gigs round about that time? Because you says you done Tea in the Park and Glastonbury, and stuff like that.
We went straight after the Oasis tour. We went on the Fratelli's tour, which was the same venues.
Was it?
Yeah.
Really?
Same size venues. So we just spent like that was, and then that led up to Christmas. And then I died over Christmas that year. It was just like, done. And then that would have been the beginning of 2009. And then it was all the legal stuff to try and get the album back. And
so what happened with that? Did they just drop you and then you tried to...
You need to just... I have no idea. We just had to wait to get the album back. And then we were sitting on going, what are we going to do? How are we going to release it? But by that point, the ship had sailed. The album should have been out like maybe summer 2008.
That's so soul-destroying to think you recorded that with your favourite producer in your favourite studios and it never got to see the light of day.
I'm just like... I mean, we released it like independently on our own, but by that point, it was like game over.
Plus, it wouldn't have done the damage as what it would have done on a major.
Nah, because we had no money to invest in it whatsoever. So 2009, we kind of plodded away. It was pretty depressing year for like doing the odd gigs and stuff. And
you're still writing?
We were trying, but we were struggling quite a lot. And then we did, I think we did a little tour at the end of 2009 or something. And then 2010 just decided to stop and just try and write stuff, basically. Because we still had money left over from the label to live.
So by this time, did you release the album independently?
Aye, it got released like late summer 2009. Never done anything because there was no money to back it. And by that point, everybody was over it because
they'd heard it already.
Those tunes have been out since like 2006, 2007. So it was too long. We missed the boat, really, which was fine because then we regrouped and we're like, right, let's go again, sort of thing. But we always knew the money was going to run out at one point. And if the money runs out, you got to go work. So we were like, the heart had completely been ripped out of it. So I think like we used to just we'd go down the studio or like the rehearsal room to like, and we'd be there like an hour, and then it would be like, anybody want to go play golf? And it's like all 4 of us on the golf course every day of the week. So we just lost motivation. Lost motivation, lost work ethic, lost like focus really. And we were just kind of playing about.
It's probably because, like you say, that list you wrote, like you had all this ambition for what you were going to do, and then when that happened, there was like, you didn't know what was going to happen.
I didn't add to the list either. Yeah. That's one thing I've learned in my life, is like always have a list and always add to it. Yeah. So I still do that.
You always need to have something to work towards. Yeah.
Keep going. Because that was it. It was like, well, we're never going to get back into that position again. That's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, which times have just moved on.
Which is not necessarily true. We could have done something, but yeah, that was it. And then we got a phone call one day from the accountant saying, you might have noticed there was no money put into your bank accounts today. That's it. The accounts dried up.
Oh my God.
And we all just like looked at each other and we're like, it's been brilliant, lads. High-fived, cuddled each other, and then went home. And I was like, what the flip am I going to do in my life now?
So when you got dropped by the label, I seen that, I was just reading up on a couple of reviews that had done, and NME seemed to be right in with you when you released the singles.
Aye.
And then they gave you a really bad review when you released the album. But what I thought was funny is, do you think that there's ties with majors and publishers, big publishers like NME?
Yeah.
So regardless of the music, do you think that if the majors still have control of some of the publishers? Because what I didn't understand is, why would they big up the singles
and then just
destroy
the album? Yeah, I think so. I think there's definitely obviously like networking and do me a favour. I look after this band, write a good review for me. So yeah, totally, 100%. Yeah. And by the time we had been dropped, it was like we weren't anybody's. So it was like
exactly.
So then some little like the guy that wrote it was probably like on a internship, and it was his first job, and he thought it would be cool just to
slate a band,
destroy the band. I was like, where is he?
Bring him up to Scotland.
Is that why you went down to London?
That's when the reason I went to live there. I found him. He's gone now.
So speaking of that, was that your next move after Sergeant finished?
Pretty much. I went travelling a bit. I went travelling around Europe for a few months.
All right.
And as you do, I was like, I need to get out of here, and just left. And then I think once I'd went travelling, I came back and I was like, I'm just gonna. I loved London, so I was like, I'm gonna go.
Yeah,
we'll just go for it and see what happens. And then we only went there for a year, but ended up there for 6. So brilliant.
So how was living in London? What did you get up to down there?
It's good, man. So the intention was to kind of go back to writing, but I just like London just sucks you up. Like I was like, flip, man, this is expensive, and so you just had to work to live basically. And I think so. Yeah, I worked for Pretty Green actually. So I was working in Covent Garden for Pretty Green, and basically it was just like, yeah, just living a life, pretty chill to be honest. Enjoying the city, enjoying my time.
How did you land that job there? Did you play the wee I supported Oasis guy?
I think pretty much. I think it was like a friend of a friend of a friend got me the job, basically.
Cool.
Because I was like, you can't move to London unless you got a job, because you'll be back home in about 3 minutes, because you spent all your money. So I was like, need a job. So I got a job, and I didn't intend to kind of stay doing that, but I just did. I was there for like 3 years or whatever. But it was all right. It was good.
So did you quit your job at Pretty Green when you started doing that?
Aye. Well, I kind of got told to leave by my familiar face. So there was one night where it was like, there was like this mystery, it was just this win a shopping spree with Liam Gallagher sort of thing. So like this guy, this crazy fanatic, had won this like competition to like meet Liam in the shop and do like a shopping trip with him. So he turns up and Liam turns up, and I was working that night, and Liam's like looking at me and he's like, I know you. And I was like, yep. And he's like, you're in that band. And he just went, what the F are you doing working in this shithole? It's like his shop. And I had like a staff badge on, and he just like grabbed it and ripped it off. And he's like, you should be doing music. I need you to go and do music. And I was like, well, if there was ever a sign
to do
I'm
it,
taking it. Like, so literally went, that was it. Yeah, I was gone.
Says a lot when pretty much your employer is telling you to get out of that shit.
He's like, go and write music again. And I was like, cool. I didn't quite go write music again, but I definitely went and
it gave you some drive.
It gave me some drive to go. So I went, and then I basically went to working like 2 nights a week, making double the amount of money as I was on the floor. I was like, what have I been doing the last 3.5 years?
That's mad.
Nah, it was great. Everybody that worked at the shop was brilliant, man. It was a really good laugh. It's probably what I needed after the
a bit normality, after a bit of the craziness.
Pretty much calmed down a bit. I tried.
So when did the solo career come? Because I first met you when we done a gig together at Buskers in Dundee.
Yeah.
It must have been 2014. I was just starting out, played acoustic. It was a fucking amazing gig. It was Buskers, sold out. First time you had played Dundee, I think, since Sargent. So obviously there was a big crowd there.
How did you end up getting that gig?
It was through a guy called Kevin Quinn, Kingdom Cuts.
The man.
Shout out to my boy Kev, who he used to run this very building, funnily enough. He used to run a radio show in it, and that's how I met him.
Right,
and he knew Nick did he know you just for the Sargent days, pretty much?
That's right,
And then he pretty much, well, he must have contacted you and then
that's right.
got in the bill. But how did stuff develop after that gig? Was that gig a kind of game changer for you to say, oh, they've still got like people, fans up this way in Scotland?
Because what I would do is I would come back from London maybe once every 2 months and do like a string of gigs. So as much as I was doing like cover gigs and stuff in London, I was able to come up here and do like just do my own acoustic
like
stuff.
Gigs,
which was really good. So it was it just went back to being, this is what I'm making a living off. So I had to basically, but I enjoyed doing it. It was great to be able to do that. So that was it. And I kind of dabbled in writing some songs again and stuff, but I don't know, my heart wasn't in doing that. I was just like, and then we had our first kid in 2015 as well.
So were you still in London when you had your first kid?
Yeah. So we were in London.
A crazy place to be. Good.
And we moved back in 2016, I think it was. Yeah. But yeah, I just went into kind of going, just what my dad said. He was like, this is your trade. Just figure out ways to make money doing it. And
if you enjoy it, why not?
I enjoy it, so like, why not?
Exactly.
So it was great. Like, it was like, fuck, this is brilliant.
So you done, obviously, all the Sargent stuff, moved to London, quit the job at Pretty Green, got back into music, and then a wee reformation of a band happened again.
Aye.
How did that come across?
The final Sargent gig ever. we promised.
Times 20.
We promised this is the last ever Sargent gig ever. We purposely call it the last ever Sargent gig ever. Every single time. But we done a string of dates in 2015.
The Greenside was the first one, I think.
That was like a wee practice kind of. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. So was that the venue that you used to play all the time when you were younger?
Pretty much.
Pretty much honed your craft.
That's literally it. Yeah.
It was a fucking great gig.
Every week we'd play in there.
I'd love to have been at that.
It was before the stage and everything was in there as well. It was like,
where it was all black floor.
Black
I remember
floor,
that.
It was like crammed, and like the drummer would be in like the laundry room, like at the back.
I remember that
open. Amazing, man. Absolutely rammed in there. Like really, really good fun.
That Sargent gig when he's got back. Well, obviously I was a bit late on the whole Sargent thing, because I started getting into music after you had split up, and then I got into Sargent probably round about the time that I supported you. Yeah, I started getting into the band, so it was fucking class for me to see them, because I didn't think you would ever reform, and it was one of the wildest gigs I've ever seen for like a 200 cap venue. It was fucking mad, because there was no barricade or nothing. And it was just
riot.
I think it was New Year's Day?
I think
New Year's Eve or something.
Yeah,
like
New
that.
Year's Eve or New Year's Day, one of them.
Were your own gigs like that level of madness?
Nah.
Towards the end, no?
You can't get that madness with an acoustic guitar, I don't think. Well, some might say
Jerry Cinnamon.
I don't know how he does it, but there you go. Nah, it was never like that. It was always when it was full band. It would just be a bit wild.
I meant like the later Sargent gigs, like your own gigs, when those full band gigs. Were they as mad?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, with them.
Crazy gigs.
Because you got the people who were there the first time being all nostalgic, and then you got the people like yourself who missed it the first time, and it all just comes together. And what you'll probably find now is, if we do gigs now, is you're probably going to have like kids who are maybe like 14 or 15 that were like that are probably kids to the people who were in it the first time. Because it's been that long.
That's pretty mad coming to think about it that way.
But that's how bands get like really big second waves, is because of the next generation coming through.
Yeah,
that's why Liam's solo career's done so well, and it's why Stone Roses managed to do that. And even bands like Shed 7 and stuff, they probably couldn't sell a ticket for years, and then all of a sudden people just get old enough, like all the kids get old enough to go to the gigs with their mums and dads, and it's like, you need to come. And it just pushes a whole new audience on them.
Yeah, they did like 2 nights at the O2 Academy in Glasgow.
Yeah, mental.
I know, they're getting bigger. That's weird. They're a band that's got bigger through time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Even like Cortiners. Yeah. They've got much bigger, and I like Cortiners, but they've never released that good music to get that big.
Mental.
Since their first album. I like their first album, but they just keep growing, and it's a time thing. Yeah. So see now that you've got that Logic, does that no inspire? You came what question's going to come? Does that no inspire you on to maybe do a wee reformation? Because obviously you've done it. You've done the Greenside gig, which was class. You've done a tour which went pretty good, which Liquid Rooms,
King Tut's, Fat Sam's and Dundee. Yeah.
And that went down a storm. I was at the Liquid Rooms gig, but there's been no new music since then. Is there any?
I think during this lockdown, you get all, like I said at the very beginning of the interview, you get all like, what if? Where's my pals? And then we're like, so we've done like quite a lot of Zoom calls, and we're all sitting there looking through old demos and looking through old songs, and like kind of like flipping, that one's all right. What is this? This one's crap. And then it's like doing that, and I was like, why did we not go in and record like 4 tunes or something? Just for the sake of doing it. Like, we didn't ever have to release them, just for the sake of like getting the 4 of us in a room. Because as you get a bit older, you get a little bit like, like you're saying, like it feels like, your time's running out at 26. But then I'm like, I'm 35, my time's running out. Like, even though it's not. When I get to 45, I'll still be like, I could still go and record tunes. Like, do you know what I mean? But so I think the idea is that we're going to go back in and do like 3 or 4 tunes and just see what it sounds like, and then we'll go and do more gigs off the back of that, and see what happens.
Buzzing for that.
Give us that story of the showcase gigs that he's done, that he's told us before.
That one, right? Got you. Aye. So we were in London and we just signed to the label, and then we were like, we got a. Like saying there's this like thing on in the afternoon or whatever, and all the new artists that have just been signed to the label are going to be there. So I was like, right, sweet. But nobody told me that we're playing a gig. So I was just thinking that we just got to turn up. And it was only in the morning that it was like, it's a gig, so you've got to be here at like 12 for sound check. And I hadn't been to bed, and like I had been out all night, and I was like, "You're joking me? We're playing? You're actually joking me?" So I turn up at 12 o'clock, absolutely like my voice is gone, I'm dying. And to be honest, 3 of us were like that. It was only one of us that had like actually had proper sleep, and the 3 of us are just like shaking, like white as ghosts. I was like, "What the flip is this, man?" And we go in, and it's this proper posh like. Swanky posh London thing, and it's like, and then we start looking about, and I'm like, is that Charlene Spiteri for Texas? And then someone's like, she's just signed to Mercury as well for her solo career. And I was like, I fancied her my whole life, man. Can't wait to tell my dad. And then it was like, so she's going on. So there's this other guy called Johnny Flynn. He had just signed. He was like a folk acoustic-y artist. And he was going on first, then it was Charlene Spiteri, then it was us. And I was going, what on earth are we going on last for? Like, what is going on here? And honestly, this Johnny Flynn gets up, and it's just him and his acoustic. And he was like, it was like the most beautiful thing. You could hear a pin drop. And it was like, everyone was dressed up. I'm wearing a skin-tight 1988 Dundee United. We're like proper like Adidas Special trainers and like jeans from like the night before, like like stinking, like still reeking of booze. My hair's everywhere, and then Charlene Spiteri gets up and she's giving it all like the banter, and I was like, this can't actually be because when you're going to go on stage and you just ken that nobody in the band's going to be up to this. I was like,
you're going to be shite.
It's going to be rubbish. It's going to be awful. And we never played like acoustic-y stuff. It was always full band. So we hadn't even rehearsed for the flipping thing. And but Rory, like the drummer's got us like snare and a hi-hat out and that, and I'm like, this is going to be absolutely shocking. And it was like, right enough, we get up and it's like first beat, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's like we're all coming in at different times. And I just like stopped. I think I like stopped the song and I was like, I'm really sorry. I'm really struggling here because I've fancied that woman over there for like for the whole of my life. Charlene Spiteri, you know who you are, fellow Scottish women. And I was like, my dad fancies you now. And like everybody starts laughing and that. So it was like, I was like, right, I've taken the sting. This sounds absolute shite. And then the manager was just standing there going,
sacked.
He's like, what's this? And like my kid, do you know when you're like no being to bed and you can't even tune your guitar properly? And you're like, why is it no tune? I was like, what's going on? And then you just got that absolute fear and panic.
You start thinking the worst.
And then and I was like, I'll just play it anyway, even though I know it's out of tune.
Oh my God.
And you're just like, my voice was gone. It was horrendous. That's maybe why we got dropped, to be honest. That was a funny day.
So, see, doing loads of gigs with The View, is there any funny stories with them? Because Sham's done a few gigs with The View, but obviously later on, it was coming towards the end of their time, and they were still absolutely fucking mental. Well, Kyle was a bit mental. Have you got any mad stories of their early days?
The biggest thing about them was that it wasn't just The View, it was The View and the whole family, as in like all their friends. Like proper close-knit school friends.
Webby and his missus have been going since they were like 14 or something.
And I used to just think that was amazing, man. So there was like a big group of them that were all best mates, and it would just be like everyone was just celebrating the success they were getting. So it was all just that, and we were as well, because it was like, if they can do it, then we can try and do this as well. And it was always like that. And I think a funny story about them actually is, so I was in Aberdeen on a Thursday night, I think it was, and I went to see Baby Shambles play. And we had just recorded our first demo at that point, and I chucked the demo on the stage, and then Pete Doherty actually came back on and was like, whose is this? Like, whose is this demo? And I was, it's me, and he was like, is it yours? It's mine. Like, come backstage. And they were playing it on the CD player in the dressing room. And I was like, flipping hell, man, I'm sitting in the dressing room and what is going on? And it was like,
so were you sitting with Pete Doherty?
So we're sitting backstage in Aberdeen on a Thursday night with Pete Doherty. I think I was like 9. How old would I have been? 2005, 20 I would have been. And then he was basically like, oh, you guys can support tomorrow night in Dundee. And so I'm on the phone to like Scott Roden. We'd hardly played any gigs by this point. So I was like, well, that's going to be shite, but we'll take it anyway. And I was like, brilliant, cool. Obviously, not the most reliable person on the planet. So it was like, we go back, and then I get to Dundee at like 4:00 in the afternoon, but Bill, Rory and Scott are nowhere to be seen because they've been at school. I was like, you just need to leave school. Like, just finish half day, man. Get your dad's van and get up here with all the gear. And they didn't turn up till like 6:00 or something. And I was like, you're fucking idiots. By that point, Kieran from The View had knocked on the bus outside Fat Sam's in Dundee. He goes on, Pete Doherty plays his CD, and he's like, you can support us tonight in Dundee.
So they stole your place pretty much.
And that's the night, and that's what got them signed that night. Mad, isn't it? I just blame it on Scott Roden. Well, we got signed in the end anyway. But I remember thinking, flipping Scott, Rory, and Bill, you get leave, flipping, just take a half day, man.
That's crazy, man.
That was the first. That was one of the first
times that
we kind of like met them and stuff. And then thereafter we played quite a lot.
Yeah,
I've got a funny Pete Doherty story.
I was just about to ask you about that.
Talking about CDs and shit. So we had played our first ever gig in Glasgow. The Shams, we had just bought a van, because when the Shams started, we were like, right, the way forward is buying a van because then it'll force us to go on the road. So we just bought a van and a band called Vida. Do you remember Vida?
Yeah.
They were playing the O2 ABC2. They were doing a single launch, so we supported them there, our first gig. And then we had burned a load of CDs and we used to just hand them out outside like Noel Gallagher gigs and whatever. Yeah. And Pete Doherty was playing at the Barrowlands that night. Yeah. So we're like, fuck it, we'll go and hand it out to all the fans coming out. So we handed it out to loads of fans. And they were like, fuck it, we may as well wait on Pete Doherty coming. So he comes out and we hand him the CD. He was like, oh, Shambolics, yeah, I've heard of yous before. But I think he'd only heard of us 5 minutes earlier because my mate had handed him the CD. So he was like, Shambolics, I've heard of yous before. And I was total buzzing, like, what? Because we'd only played like one gig in fucking Glasgow and like a couple in Fife. And he was like, hey, you got your songs on here? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, let's come on the bus, give it a listen. So I was obviously like,
buzzing.
Oh my God.
He does it to everybody.
So I'm walking forward like, what the fuck is happening here? And he had these mental like French birds that followed him everywhere like crazy fans. And this other guy turns up and he had like a fucking floppy disk or some shit like that with his songs on it. And he was like, oh Pete, I'm a mad fan, I've seen you the past like fucking 3 nights. I think he was a mad like crazy Libertines fan. He was following him about. And he was like, I want to come on tea. And like there was this big charge toward the bus as I was getting invited on it. And I was like, what the fuck? The security just all came and broke it all. And they were just like, right, no chance, you're not getting on. And Pete was kind of hanging off the bus. He was like, what are you doing tomorrow? And I was like, nothing. And he's like, well, speak to our manager then. We'll see if you get in the bill. And
there you go, it does it to everybody.
So I was obviously like, fucking hell, this is mad. And then we asked his manager and he was just like, nah, no chance. He says it to everybody.
That's absolutely brilliant. I thought I had a like unique story. It's like I met this girl, you know, like she's beautiful, like we had a wonderful evening. And you're like, oh, I know her. I know her as well. I met her last week. It's like flipping what?
But I've never heard of Pete Doherty since.
That's
I'm sure we'll bump into him a time.
That's amazing.
Story.
Good on him.
But fair play on for like inviting bands to do stuff like that. That's cool how you actually. At least you made it backstage. I made it halfway a step on the bus and some fucking mad guy with a floppy disk.
I think I was included in this like looting thing. Like I'd just be standing in there and there'd be like there's like a couple of geezers would be like, just take these 2 black bags to the van, please. I'm walking out to the van going, where on earth have these pictures come from? Like, have they taken them off the walls in the venue? Like, I think they just cleared the venue, man. I was like, what is going on here? Absolutely mental, eh? The entourage was just ridiculous.
I can imagine. And that would have been Baby Shambles. Was that 2005, you said?
Aye, riot.
That must have been fucking mad.
Total riot, man.
Where can we find you on socials, Nick? Are you on all social media platforms and stuff?
Instagram and Facebook is the 2 places to get me.
Under Nick Mercer Jr.
Aye, Nick Mercer Jr. I'm going to do this new project and lose money. See what happens. Find my product, DIY, get the tunes on the go. I'll be at Hampden in 2 years.
Yes. Then you'll retire.
Then I'm gone.
Like.
Well, pleasure having you on here.
Thanks very much.
In the studio again, and looking forward to working with you in the future again, my man.
Love it, man.
Cheers for coming.
Thanks for having me. It's quality.
And make sure you tune in to our YouTube account and subscribe to us there and like us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Boom.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers again, my man.
Cheers, lads.